Hello my bookish lovelies, Kira here, and today's I'm here to gush about all of the upcoming releases here in August that are going to be coming out in 2021. I'm so excited. Like, we've been getting so many awesome releases lately. Like, I just feel like all of these publishers are like, their game is like top notch like right now. Not only are we getting a fair amount of diversity, and it's getting more and more amazing like as we go on, like for the amount of diversity in books that we're getting, but we're also getting wider and wider varieties and, you know, like more representation and everything. And I'm just like, I am like at odds with my bank account and all of these new books that are coming out. The audacity almost, but I'm really excited anyway. So I put these books in order of when they're supposed to be coming out, and the first book that I'm really excited about is called A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee, and this one's coming out August 3rd. So basically, like, this has been pitched as for fans of Wilder Girls and Ninth House comes a dark, twisty, atmospheric thriller about a boarding school haunted by its history of witchcraft and two girls dangerously close to digging up the past. So the main character is Felicity Morrow, and she is back at Dalloway School, which is the boarding school. This boarding school is set in the Catskill Mountains, and it is a centuries-old, ivy-covered campus. And it was her home until the tragic death of her girlfriend. After a year away, she returned to graduate, and she even ended up in her original room that she had before she left, that's haunted by 5 girls that died in this boarding school. All the girls died mysteriously, and they were all said to be witches. But Felicity is determined to leave all that behind. This is her final year at Dalloway, and she is working on her thesis and trying to graduate. That's her main focus. But witchcraft is kind of woven into this school. Like, it is in corners and nooks and crannies, and it is everywhere in this school. But she is just trying not to get sidetracked by that, and she is trying to just do what she has to do to get by and graduate in her school. But then we also have like this other girl, Ellis Haley, who is at Dalloway for the very first time. She's a prodigy novelist at 17, and she's already amassed quite the following. Ellis is writing a book, and she asks Felicity to help her research the 5 girls that died. And because Felicity has a really strong connection to the arcane, she feels like she is the perfect one to help Ellis with this. But in the scheme of things, history begins to repeat itself, and a lot of questions are raised. Victoria Lee is also an author like that wrote The Fever King, which is kind of like a science fiction, I think having to do like with electricity, and it is a duology that I really want to get to. But I'm really intrigued by where this new book is going, A Lesson in Vengeance, and I'm really curious to see how this goes and like what happens in this, because it sounds like a lot of fun. Another book that I am really excited that's going to be coming out is an adult science fiction. It is called Shards of the Earth by Adrian Tachevsky. Honestly, I'm really sorry, I probably butchered that. So this is the same author that wrote the award-winning author of Children of Time. Brings us an extraordinary space opera about humanity on the brink of extinction and how one man's discovery will save or destroy us all. So our main character, Idris, was remade in the war, and he has neither slept or aged since he was remade during this war. He is one of humanity's heroes, and he scrapes by on this vessel to avoid the attention of greater powers. After this whole story takes place after the Earth was destroyed, and a bunch of elites are brought together to save mankind as a species. This group are a collection of enhanced humans like Idris. In the silence of space, they can communicate telepathically. Then their aliens, the architects of these superior race, kind of just disappeared, and Idris and his kind became obsolete. So this takes place actually 50 years after Idris was created along with these other superior humans, and they find this structure in space that is obviously made by the architects, but it's been 50 years, so like, are these architects coming back? Like, what's going on? Like, why is this thing suddenly materialized like out of nowhere? Idris and all of these superior humans have been kind of hunted by a lot of other groups. They're considered a threat because of all of their abilities, and so like they've kind of been on survival mode since like they were created. So a lot of this story takes place with Idris and his crew hunting for answers about the architects, where they went, why they disappeared and why they haven't heard from them since. I'm really excited for this because this is another, I believe, first in a series, and it's not a standalone, and I'm really kind of curious to see where this goes, because it sounds really fascinating, and I personally am very curious to see about where the architects went. So I hope you guys will check this one out too, because I'm really excited for this. I still want to read the Children of Time books before I dig into this one, but this is definitely something that sounds really good. Another book that is coming out that I'm really excited for, it's called Velvet Was the Night by Silvia Moreno Garcia. She is the same author as Mexican Gothic. And this book is coming out August 17th. It's described as a twisty treat for lovers of noir about a daydreaming secretary, a lonesome enforcer, and the mystery of a missing woman they are both desperate to find. It takes place in 1970s Mexico City. I feel like the secretary in this is a woman after my own heart. She loves romance novels. She's obsessed with romance novels. While there's tons of political unrest during this time in 1970s in Mexico City, she is on the pursuit of these daydreaming fantasies where there's nothing but passion and escape. And her neighbor Lenora seems to be living the life that she wants to have, which is a life of passion and escape and romance. One day, Lenora actually disappears under very mysterious circumstances, and now our main character, our protagonist, has to figure out what happened to her. So meanwhile, somebody else is kind of hunting for Lenora, and it's a shadowy figure that is from Lenora's boss. His name is Elvis, and he is an eccentric criminal. He hates his life, he wants to escape himself, he hates the violence, and he's very old-fashioned because he likes the old school movies and rock and roll. But as Elvis goes and searches for Lenora, he kind of catches a glimpse of our main character, and he's completely enchanted with her. Oh, this makes me so happy because this just feels like this old school romance kind of thing going on in this. You remember those black and white movies where you had the really beautiful girl coming into the detective's office, and she's like, "Sir, I need your help. I am in serious trouble." And kind of the whole gangster thing, with the private detective and the beautiful maiden in distress. And I kind of get those kind of vibes from this, but in Mexico City. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one. I think this is going to be a lot of fun, and I haven't pre-ordered it yet, but I'm going to, because this is another one that I'm just really ecstatic about, because I think it's just going to be so good. The next book that I'm really excited for is called Redemptor. It's Raybearer #2 by Jordan Ifueko. So Raybearer itself is the very first book in this series. It's a duology, so this is going to be the second book. And now that the second book is getting ready to come out, I can go ahead and read the first book. So many people have been raving about this duology. Everybody that has read this at least the first book, has absolutely loved it. And I mean loved it. And these books are not super thick, so and they are YA fantasy. And they just, I'm just really excited that the second book's coming out, because I want to binge read this duology, because it just seems like it's going to be amazing, and I don't think I could have lasted a whole year waiting for this second one to come out. So in the first book, Tarsi has always longed for the warmth of family, and she was raised in isolation. And there is a competition in this where Tsari is sent to the capital to compete against other kids, one of the Crown Prince's Council of 11. If she's picked, she will be chosen as one of the council members who gets bonded through something called the Ray, which is a bond that goes deep into even a blood bond. Tsari has always longed for a deep bond with other individuals, something that's family, something that's more than family, because she's been deprived of it for so long. So now that she's desperate for it, she is looking to compete and get into this council so that she has that connection. But the lady that sent her to the capital, the one that's kind of been the only one that's kind of been there for her, wants her to kill the Crown Prince, and the only way she can get close enough to do that is if she becomes part of the council. But Tsari is kind of having mixed emotions about that. She's not really sure that's the direction she wants to go, even though the lady is the only woman that she's actually kind of formed a bond with, and but she doesn't know like if this is the right path for her. So that's the first book. I don't really like to talk too much about the synopsis like of the second book, because not only I have not read the first book, so therefore I don't want to read the synopsis of the second, but also like I think that this is just going to be really good and really interesting, and I'm really hoping to get to this one. So now we're going to move on to August 24th. This list that I have that is for the August releases is definitely like not nearly as long as I feel like as the July releases. So I do like want to talk about this. So the next book like that's coming out, it's called Vampires, Hearts and Other Dead Things, and it's by Margie Fuston. And of course, like vampires, like how can I not want to read about vampires? Like I'm obsessed with vampires. This is a debut novel. That's The Coldest Girl in Cold Town meets They Both Die at the End. So I have a feeling that this book is just going to rip me to shreds. It's funny, as a reader, like you really welcome being ripped to shreds. I feel like a lot of readers are probably like at least a little bit masochistic, because I mean, why would we continuously like put ourselves through this? You know, if we didn't enjoy feeling like, you know, like that. So I haven't like really like read the synopsis, but I've seen some people who've been approved for it from NetGalley, and the few people like that I've seen that have been approved for it from NetGalley have actually really enjoyed it. It says Victoria and her dad have shared a love of the undead since the first vampire revealed his existence on the live TV. Public fear soon drove the vampires back into hiding, yet Victoria and her father still dream about finding a vampire together. But when her dad is diagnosed with terminal cancer, it's clear that that's not going to happen. Instead, Victoria vows to find a vampire herself so that she can become one and then save her father. Armed with research, speculations, and desperation, and helped by her estranged best friend Henry, Victoria travels to New Orleans in search of a miracle. There she meets Nicholas, a mysterious young man who might give her what she desires, but first he needs Victoria to prove that she loves life enough to live forever. She agrees to complete a series of challenges, from scarfing sugar-drenched bonnets to singing with a jazz band, all to show she has what it takes to be immortal. But truly living while her father is dying feels like betrayal. Victoria must figure out how to experience joy and grief at once, trusting all the while that Nicholas will hold up his end of the bargain, because the alternative is too impossible to imagine. So yeah, this is one of the books I have pre-ordered, and I'm not really sure like if I'm gonna be okay after this book, but we'll see. It sounds so good. Okay, so the next book that we have is called Women of Troy by Pat Barker, and that book is going to be out August 24th. This is the same author that wrote the critically acclaimed The Silence of the Girls, and that was actually a book that I had read from Book of the Month I want to say about 2 or 3 years ago. I did kind of a review on it like when I first started my channel. If you guys are interested, I'll put it up there. I actually have 2 different videos for this. One is spoilery, the other one is spoiler free. I was still kind of experimenting like back then, and I didn't know if I wanted to do a spoiler kind of like review on this book or a spoiler free, so I kind of just did both. But if you guys are interested, there's the card for that. So this is called Women of Troy #2. I believe the first one is Silence of the Girls. But this is Pat Barker continues her extraordinary retelling of one of our greatest myths, which is Troy. Troy has fallen, the Greeks have won their bitter war, they can return home victors loaded with their spoils, their stolen gold, stolen weapons, stolen women. All they need is good wind to lift their sails, but the wind does not come, the gods have been offended, the body of Priam lies desecrated, unburied, and so the victors remain in limbo, camped in the shadow of the city, they destroyed, pacing at the edge of an unobliging sea, and in these empty, restless days, the hierarchies that held them together begin to fray, old feuds resurface, and new suspicions fester. Largely unnoticed by her squibbling captors, Bristles remains in the Greek encampment. She forges alliances where she can with the young, dangerous Amina, with defiant age Hecuba, and Calchas, the disgraced priest, and begins to see the path to a kind of revenge. Bristles has survived the Trojan War, but peacetime may turn out to be even more dangerous. So yes, I'm very excited for this. And I actually really love this cover. Like it's got like, of course, like the Grecian kind of vibe to it. But I love the fact that we have the Trojan horse on there. My phone's getting ready to die, but my camera's getting ready to die, and I have one more book to discuss, which is The Pariah by Anthony Ryan. And so I'm just going to go ahead and read the synopsis because I want to get this in before my battery dies. And this is going to be coming out also on August 24th. From the international best-selling author of The Raven's Shadow and Draconis Memoria series comes the spectacular first novel in an all-new epic fantasy trilogy. Born into the troubled kingdom of Albermain, Alwyn Scribe is raised as an outlaw, quick of wit and deft with a blade. Alwyn is content with the freedom of the woods and the comradeship of his fellow thieves, but an act of betrayal sets him on a new path, one of blood and vengeance, which eventually leads him to a soldier's life in a king's army. Fighting under the command of Lady Evadine Corlane, a noblewoman beset by visions of demonic apocalypse, Alwyn must survive war and deadly intrigues of the nobility if he hopes to claim his vengeance. But as dark forces, both human and arcane, gather to oppose Evadine's rise, Alwyn faces a choice. Can he be a warrior or can he be an outlaw? The Raven's Shadow trilogy I actually have up here. You can see like the bottom book, like the Queen's Fire, which is like the third book in this series. But like it goes Bloodsong, Tower Lord, and Queen of Fire, and I still have to read those. I actually bought them, this is things I love hardback, and I know like that if I wait sometimes like for the hardback or for me to be ready to read it, I won't be able to get it hardback. And I love myself a huge hardback book. Like if we're going to talk about size here, like that's the size that matters. Yeah, I still have to read those, which I'm hoping to do. I'm trying to slowly like get through all of my fantasy series. Fantasy series are so time consuming, and there's still so much good stuff coming out that I want to have time to read. So Pariah, everyone, I want to really read this one also. The list is endless, and every month it grows just a little bit more. So those are all the books that I'm really excited about that are coming out in the month of August. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you guys like this video. If you guys like this video, hit the like, hit subscribe, hit the little bell icon if you guys want to receive emails every single time I post. I'm also on Amazon, Goodreads, Twitter, and TikTok. Those links are linked in the description below. I hope you guys will join me for my next video, and thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys again very soon.